Yeah, this headline is harsh, and yes, this kind of things does happen. My mother has worked in an office her whole life, and I know how this system works since I was a child. This isn't just a story for the sake of use, it's real life experience that thousands of people go through. We tell the stories so that someone will recognize themselves and not repeat someone else's mistake. All names, companies, and addresses are fictitious and have been changed.
She fired me for my shirt. No warning, no meeting. Just a manicured finger stabbing toward the door like I was a waiter who'd spilled wine on her influencer brunch. One minute, I was walking through the atrium with a tablet full of integration timelines, and the next, Callie DeWitt, the founder's daughter turned VP of Culture, was waving the employee handbook like it was a holy relic, and I was committing fashion blasphemy. Did you even read the dress code? She sneered, heels clicking across the marble like punctuation. No collar, that's termination. I blinked. It's a custom Ralph Lauren polo. She tilted her head like a spoiled cat deciding whether or not to ruin the drapes. The handbook clearly states collared blouses only, not polos, not golf gear. This is a corporate environment, not a barbecue. That's when she called the intern. The intern. Fresh out of undergrad and probably still getting orientation emails. Escort her out, she said, like I was contagious. Let me pause here for a second, just a second, to say if you're enjoying this story and want to hear how it all unfolds, do me one favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people who listen don't subscribe, but it helps more than you know. Okay, back to Callie. So there I was, standing badgeless in the lobby of a $900 million company I'd spent 6 years helping grow, my customized integration framework still running on their systems, and some 24-year-old in loafers was asking if I needed him to call me an Uber. I could have argued. I could have told her she was violating a half dozen internal clauses, not to mention the optics of firing someone 36 hours before the biggest merger in company history. But I didn't. See, when you work in post-acquisition integration, you learn patience. You learn when to press and when to fold your hands and let someone else light the match. Callie DeWitt had been VP of Culture for exactly 9 weeks. Her onboarding presentation had included the phrase vibrational synergy 3 times. She replaced the break room coffee with oat milk lattes and a chalkboard wall that said Gratitude Corner. She'd never led a merger, never authored a compliance map, never navigated a multilateral integration under shared IP covenants and federal antitrust thresholds. But she had fired me for a shirt. The best part? I wasn't even on her org chart. When I joined Larkwell, it was still privately held. The founder, Henry DeWitt, Callie's father, had recruited me personally. You'll operate cross-functionally, he said. No noise, no ego, just results. And I delivered. 8 acquisitions in 5 years, 0 compliance flags. My frameworks became the silent scaffolding that kept the company from toppling every time we added another limb. But Henry had retired, and his daughter had arrived with pastel slides and a vengeance against navy blue. I left the building with no scene, no email, no protest, just a quiet smile. Because here's the thing Callie didn't know. She hadn't read the merger binder, but I had written it. The first time I realized Callie was digging, it wasn't dramatic. No confrontation, no eyebrow raise, just a casual Friday morning and her standing too long by the HR door frame, sipping something green out of a branded tumbler and pretending to scroll her phone, while Elaine, the HR director, rambled about legacy contracts. I saw the flick of a page, then 2, then a post-it with my name half covered by her thumb. That's when I knew she'd found the personnel files. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Callie treated due diligence like it was a Pinterest board. Skim, click, vibe check, move on, and apparently I didn't fit the aesthetic. Her first day, she posted a Slack-wide announcement that we were shifting to intentional cultural optimization, a phrase that meant absolutely nothing, and yet somehow triggered 3 emergency meetings, a mural in the break room, and the death of real coffee. In less than a week, she'd banned highlighters, to neon, replaced the onboarding manual with a Canva brochure titled Living the Larkwell Life, and started rating department Slack channels with emojis, stars for aligned, eyes for watch list, and I kid you not, a poop emoji for legacy energy. Finance got a poop. Legal got eyes. My team, we were invisible, which is exactly how I liked it. Callie wasn't subtle about her plans. She wanted a legacy, something her business school friends could read about on LinkedIn while sipping $19 cocktails shaped like clouds. But I had the real maps. I'd built them. And unlike her, I knew exactly which doors were wired to alarms. The email came the Monday before board week. Subject line, urgent, protocol confirmation, integration team. No greeting, no signature, just one line. Please confirm full alignment with current cultural and procedural frameworks ahead of board presentation. I stared at it for a full minute. Cultural and procedural frameworks? That's like asking if gravity aligns with oxygen. Instead of replying with a paragraph, which I'd seen her delete mid-scroll more than once, I pasted one hyperlink, the merger compliance binder, the one with my name in the metadata, the one that spelled out every condition of executive continuity, cultural transition safeguards, IP preservation, and yes, attire neutrality down to the footnotes. I watched the tracker. She never opened it. Later that week, I overheard her in the atrium telling someone from facilities, "We're simplifying org layers. The old guard's gonna feel it. But hey, real leaders adapt." I didn't flinch. I didn't correct her. I just adjusted the permissions on the transition matrix and waited. That was always the trick, wasn't it? Let them run the game, so long as you built the board. She waited until the perfect moment to humiliate me. Monday morning, 1 hour before the Sinclair team was scheduled to arrive, the entire executive wing smelled like lemon-polished desperation. Fresh flowers, fresh paint, fresh buzzwords taped to the walls like they'd been manifested overnight. Callie had the foyer staged like a Vogue shoot. Fern leaves, branded water bottles, a whiteboard that said, "Vibes speak louder than words." And me, walking in, same as always. Navy shirt, gray slacks, flats, hair tied up, tablet in hand, login badge clipped to my pocket. She was waiting by the front desk like some budget version of Miranda Priestley, heels planted, mouth curled into that tight little smirk she always gave when she thought she'd caught someone. This time, she held the handbook like it was a warrant. "Did you even read the dress code?" Her voice echoed across the lobby. A few interns looked up from their phones. I didn't stop walking. She raised the handbook like it was evidence. "No collar, that's termination." I stopped. Not because I was afraid, not because I thought she was right, but because I knew, down to my marrow, that she'd just detonated something she didn't even understand. "Excuse me?" I said, slow, calm. Callie didn't blink. The handbook clearly states that all external-facing employees must wear a collared blouse or blazer. Polos don't count. This is a corporate environment, not a startup daycare. I opened my mouth to respond, then shut it. There was nothing to say. If she'd read the transition terms, the executive retention clauses, the dependencies buried in the cultural stabilization matrix, she'd know that this was bigger than shirt buttons. But she hadn't. She turned to one of the new interns, Eli, I think his name was, and said, "Escort her out, please. HR will follow up. Badge deactivation is automatic." Eli looked like a deer in a courtroom. She's no longer employed," Callie snapped. He walked me to the front doors like I was radioactive. I handed over my badge without a word. No scene, no protest. Just the quiet, surgical precision of letting someone hang themselves with rope they insisted on measuring. I sat in the lobby, palms flat on my bag, watching the glass doors reflect the chaos starting to ripple behind them. She didn't know. Not yet. But in 42 minutes, the founder of Sinclair Ventures would walk through those same doors, and her empire of vision boards and petty power plays, it would start crumbling before she even had time to reapply her lipstick. The moment Arthur Sinclair walked through those revolving doors, the energy shifted. Not just because he was the founder of Sinclair Ventures, not because he carried enough weight to tilt entire markets, but because unlike Callie, Arthur understood what integration actually meant. He saw people, not optics. Outcomes, not emojis. And when his eyes landed on me sitting calmly in the lobby, his whole face lit up like it always did when he saw a trusted player. Early as ever, he beamed, walking straight toward me with 2 lawyers and a compliance exec trailing him like shadows. "Ready to make this official?" He leaned in for a hug. Warm, familiar, the kind of embrace that says, "We've been through fire together." I returned it. then took one step back. "Afraid not," I said. His smile wavered. "Come again?" "She just fired me," I said, voice even. "About 45 minutes ago. Dress code violation." Arthur blinked. I nodded toward the elevator bank, where Callie was probably still up there rehearsing how she'd say synergy without choking. VP of Culture, caught me in a navy polo, said it wasn't compliant, terminated me on the spot. The lawyers behind him stopped mid-step. Arthur's face didn't move, but his eyes? They went cold, fast, like someone had just thrown a switch and cut the lights behind them. "Who?" he said, voice low. "Callie DeWitt." Silence dropped like a weight on the marble floor. One of the Sinclair attorneys, Marcus, I think, opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. The younger woman beside him pulled out her phone. No one moved. Arthur looked at me for a long moment, like he was replaying every conversation we'd ever had, every roadmap, every dotted line and contingency clause I'd built into the binder he'd studied back in Q2 when this whole thing began. "She fired you," he repeated, slower this time, like the phrase itself was acidic. I nodded once. "No collar. Company handbook." He exhaled through his nose, turned away, and muttered something under his breath I couldn't catch. Then louder. "Where's the boardroom?" Marcus cleared his throat. "7th floor, East Wing." Arthur turned back to me. "Come with us." I shook my head. "I don't work here anymore." It wasn't sarcasm, it wasn't a jab, it was a mirror, polished, held steady, and reflecting every drop of recklessness that had just spilled onto her designer carpet. He stared at me for 3 more seconds, then turned on his heel and walked toward the elevators. No smiles now. The signing pens remained capped in the briefcase, and somewhere upstairs, a girl who thought color palettes mattered more than contracts was about to learn how silence, when positioned right, can be the loudest thing in the room. Arthur didn't waste time with disbelief. He just said, "Private room," and Marcus found us a small glass-walled conference pod on the mezzanine level. Frosted panels, quiet HVAC hum. No decor, just a table, 4 chairs, and the weight of what was about to be unraveled. I pulled my bag into my lap and unzipped the front pouch. Out came my annotated copy of the merger draft. Spiral-bound, dog-eared, tabs in every color. Arthur raised an eyebrow when he saw it. I slid it across the table, already open to Schedule F. "Bottom paragraph," I said. He leaned in, fingers tracing the line like he was verifying it wasn't a trick. Then he read it aloud. "Transaction dependent on continued employment of integration lead, Madison Crane, through post-merger transition period not less than 180 days. He didn't look up immediately. Just sat there, hand flat on the page, like maybe pressing down hard enough would rewind the last hour. "She didn't read it," he muttered finally. "No," I said. "She didn't." Marcus stepped closer, peering over Arthur's shoulder. He didn't even reach for his own copy, just went pale as his eyes scanned the clause again. "Cultural continuity," I added. "Page 47, it's one of the soft preconditions. If the board can't guarantee executive cultural alignment, Sinclair reserves the right to freeze proceedings until further notice." Arthur didn't say a word. He just flipped the binder himself, hand trembling slightly until he hit page 47. There it was, highlighted in blue. My mark. "Clause 12D," I continued, "governs the IP stabilization timeline, requires the integration lead to validate process flow within the first 60 days. Without me, your compliance roadmap has a 2-month stall." That's when the music upstairs stopped. Literally, cut off mid-chord. Something upbeat and nauseating, probably one of Callie's curated playlists called Boardroom Beats or Sign and Slay, gone in a blink. Marcus fumbled his phone from his pocket. Calling the board. Arthur nodded slowly. Then, so quiet it almost didn't land, he said, "She just took a billion-dollar deal and shredded it with a dress code memo." He wasn't wrong, because that clause, Schedule F, it didn't just name me, it tethered me. My role wasn't cosmetic, wasn't ceremonial, it was load-bearing, and Callie, in all her clipboard wisdom, had just knocked out the keystone. Upstairs, the elevator chimed. Down the hall, I saw 2 Sinclair staffers hustling toward the press lounge, badges swinging, phones already glued to ears. No shouting, no drama. Just the eerie calm of a structure beginning to groan under its own weight. She wanted me out. Now she was about to learn what happens when you remove the person holding the scaffolding. By 2:17 p.m., the Larkowell intranet went from "Let's celebrate" banners to a blunt 403 error page. By 3:04, I received a Slack ping from a former procurement lead. Did the merger get delayed? We just got a hold request on all Q4 vendor renewals. I didn't answer. She'd find out soon enough. By 3:42, I saw a screenshot floating around on a private industry thread. The Sinclair press office had pulled the embargoed deal announcement from the distribution queue. The caption? Timing adjustment. Strategic pause. Translation: We're not touching this mess until legal tells us what survives the autopsy. HR started scrambling by sunset. You could smell the panic in the forwarded emails, subject lines shifting from celebration logistics to urgent policy review. They called it a protocol review sweep, but everyone knew what it was. Damage control in high heels. Sinclair's compliance unit, quiet as ghosts, flagged 5 subclauses, each with enough weight to force a full due diligence reset. That meant a 90-day stall minimum. It also meant disclosures had to be refiled, investor sentiment would wobble, and quarterly projections were about to take a nosedive off the optimism cliff. And Callie? She went full delusion. I was enforcing policy, she kept saying. Standards matter. Culture is everything. She actually stood up during the emergency board huddle and used the phrase symbolic disruption to legacy complacency, like she was Gandhi with a glitter pen. Meanwhile, legal was printing out my original binder, and Sinclair's director of compliance was reviewing time-stamped Slack logs to confirm how many execs had ever been informed of her dress code update. Short answer, 3, not including me. And I didn't retaliate, didn't send any scorched earth emails or throw gasoline on the fire. That wasn't my job anymore. My badge was gone, my access revoked. But I had one thing no one else in that building did: momentum. Because at 5:22 p.m., Crane Advisory LLC posted a quiet job listing on a select invite-only board. Seeking senior-level strategists with regulatory expertise, background in post-merger integration preferred, must be willing to relocate, confidential client. That's it. No logo, no mention of Sinclair, just the exact shape of the hole Callie had created, posted like a whisper in a room full of shouting. By 6:03 p.m., I had 11 messages in my inbox. By 6:47, someone from Polaris Capital texted, "You free for a quick call? Looks like Larkwell's bleeding." I didn't answer. I was pouring wine. And upstairs, Callie was still spinning phrases like vision stewardship and dress code integrity, while entire departments quietly froze payroll transfers, paused vendor contracts, and reviewed exit clauses on retention bonuses. She hadn't just fired me. She dislodged the keystone of a $3.8 billion bridge. And now the whole structure was humming, ready to fall. She thought walking it back would be easy. By the next morning, Callie was already rehearsing her damage control ballet, spinning her heels through HR, legal, comms, every floor but the one where the real decisions were being made. She told anyone who'd listen that I was contractual, not core. Said she misunderstood the scope of retention dependencies, and that her decision was symbolic, not structural. That one got a laugh from the CFO in front of the board. But the thing about symbols is, when you burn one, the fire's still real. What she didn't know was that Arthur's general counsel had already seen my signature, not once, not twice, 12 times, across joint regulatory filings, audit attestation documents, system stabilization affidavits, each one tied directly to the compliance clause she'd tripped like a landmine in heels. There was no walking back from that. She tried her father, of course. Classic move, Henry DeWitt, the founder. Old school, beloved, the man who'd recruited me himself with a handwritten note and a bottle of scotch. But when she called, it went straight to voicemail. She tried again, then again. I heard she stood outside his condo in Brentwood for 3 hours, waiting, but he didn't come down. He wasn't going to save her from a mistake he would have never made. Sinclair went silent. No follow-up emails, no calls, no Slack emojis or late-night circling back pings. Just a vacuum. And in this world, silence doesn't mean calm. It means pivot. At 9:46 that night, I got a message from a number I hadn't seen in years. An old colleague. We'd done a joint integration back in 2018. Rough. Ugly, but we'd pulled it off. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Sinclair's looking elsewhere, she wrote. Want in? I stared at the message for a full minute, then typed 3 words. Send the docs. No grand speech, no, here's what she did. That wasn't needed. Callie had done the talking for both of us. She'd told everyone in the building, loudly, that I wasn't essential. And then she proved I was. Because now the room she tried to run was scanning LinkedIn, private networks, alumni forums, looking not just for a strategist, but for stability. Someone who wouldn't build a brand on buzzwords or collapse a deal over a blouse. By midnight, I had 3 more messages. One from someone at Allerton Metrics, one from a Sinclair strategist, one from a recruiter who happened to be sipping champagne at the same rooftop where Callie was once supposed to host her victory toast. But the champagne stayed corked. And Callie? She kept talking, but now no one was listening. The sound that mattered, whispers in the wind, wasn't hers. It was mine. It didn't make headlines the way Callie once imagined it would. There were no photo shoots, no branded lattes, no rooftop party with embossed napkins that said culture wins. Just a quiet press release on a Wednesday afternoon. Sinclair Ventures acquires majority stake in Allerton Metrics. No mention of Larkwell. Not one. Inside the deal memo, in a footnote that only the careful would catch, there was a clause outlining advisory alignment. That clause named Crane Advisory as a preferred integrator. That was me. Not that I needed the spotlight. I'd spent most of my career under it without needing to stand in it. I joined Allerton the same day. They didn't need to onboard me. I already knew their system. Had worked with half their team in a past life during a cross-border cleanup that nearly broke a currency peg. This time, we didn't need introductions. Just signal. That night, Larkwell's stock dipped 17%, then kept falling. Vendors backed out of conditional renewals. Regulatory liaisons went dark. The phrase, pending stabilization, started appearing in emails like mold. HR tried to revive the company town hall, but no one RSVP'd. Legal updated everyone's NDAs, just in case. Arthur released a single line to the press when asked about the shift. We prioritize clarity over chaos. And that was it. No mud, no blame. Just an elegant incision where a name used to be. Meanwhile, Larkwell's leadership page quietly reshuffled. The photo carousel thinned out. 2 roles merged. 1 vanished. Callie's name disappeared entirely. No statement, no transition title, no off to pursue new adventures. Just gone. Like a pop-up tent after a rainstorm. The rumor mill said she returned to hospitality. Some consulting gig in Aspen, maybe. A retreat brand. One of those companies that sells experiences instead of products. No one could confirm it. Her LinkedIn went private. Her Instagram turned into sunsets and smoothies. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because the merger still happened. It just happened without the building she thought she was redecorating into an empire. I'd built the frameworks. I'd carried the process. I'd walked the deal across the fire line and out the other side. The boardroom didn't need my voice. They had my signature, my timeline, my integration triggers, my silence. Callie had her policies. I had the infrastructure. And in the end, only one held. There was no champagne toast, no podium flashbulbs, no choreographed handshake photo posted to LinkedIn with a faux inspirational caption. The Allerton Sinclair deal inked itself into existence on a quiet Thursday morning, logged somewhere between a 7 a.m. signature and a 9:30 compliance upload. Just 2 firms sealing a future. Just another transaction in the noise of corporate shuffle. My name wasn't in the press release, no titles, no statements. I wasn't quoted, congratulated, or tagged. But Section 12D, buried on page 79 of the Compliance Annex, read, Integration guaranteed by third-party specialist, Crane Advisory. That was the line that mattered. That line kept the federal oversight off their backs. That line stabilized the valuation models, revalidated the systems plan, and told the market the chaos was over. Larkwell, meanwhile, tried to claw back relevance. Their PR firm pushed out a soft focus piece about internal renewal. Callie's old team scrubbed and reposted the original branding deck with new fonts, new photos, and no soul. They even tried to tease a revised strategic alignment initiative, as if they hadn't just watched their future rerouted through a firm down the block. But the market knew. You can't fire the clause holder and keep the deal. And Arthur, He didn't forget. At the following quarter's industry summit, he took the stage. No slides, just a stool, a mic, and a room full of leaders who'd all read the headlines, seen the merger pivot, and whispered about the fallout inside rooms with closed doors. He spoke for 15 minutes. Clear, steady, no names, just principle. Culture matters, he said. But culture without comprehension is noise. We learned a lesson. A costly one. Then he paused, smiled faintly, and dropped the final line like a gavel. Before you enforce culture, read the conditions. The room held its breath, then silence. No applause, just a shift in posture. Executives jotting notes, leaning forward, reevaluating their own internal scaffolding. No one dared pretend they didn't know exactly what he meant. I stood in the side aisle, not backstage, not spotlighted, just there, watching. I didn't need recognition. I didn't need credit. I had something better. I had authorship. Because deals don't rise on slogans. They rise on structure. And in the end, when the ink dries and the room empties, all that's left is who built the frame. The contract held. And so did I.